When it goes live, I want everybody just to introduce themselves really quick. I'm gonna come in, and then I'll pass it to where everybody just quick introduction. Then we'll put Chief in the hot seat. We'll make it happen. Yeah, there it is. We're good to go. All right, can you hear me good?
Yep.
All right, all right. Welcome everyone, man. We are live. I'm appreciative. I tell you what, man, it's always a blessing to be able to communicate and laugh and enjoy a good time with everybody. Look at all these beautiful faces, man. I tell you what, Chief, this is Chief Caps, y'all, and he's supposed to have more partnership here, but it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. This is welcome to One Blood Movement of Unity, where we do community and law enforcement forums, and what that does is just bring a conversation. We have so many odd and just bad things that are not happening well in our communities, and we all trying to figure out how to fix it, why, and when, and where to go. Well, y'all, Chief Caps has been my go-to guy. Him and Corey, which is Johnson County, Chief Caps is in Nightdale, and they have been on my side since I've started this type of forum, and we've been doing it on Zoom for the longest. So I'm extremely appreciative of just him even coming in today. Now we're able to do it in person, and we have fun. We joke a lot, we laugh a lot, but we know it's a serious matter. And we take it full blast. Why? Because it's a conversation that needs to be had. And I'd say big kudos to my man right here, Andrew Roush. He's the pastor of this church right here. So we thank you for allowing us to use your room and your facilities. It's amazing right now what we're feeling. I got the beautiful Miss Addie and Elizabeth. How y'all doing today?
Good. Thank you for having us.
Awesome.
Doing well.
Hold on one second. I'm gonna turn them around. Look, I forgot to show y'all to the crowd. Hold on one second. We got Zoom. Oh, that's pretty right there. All right, we got Zoom going, so we're going live, and we did this for a purpose. So, like I say, everybody, if you want to watch it, if you want to share it out, you can type in One Blood MOU on Facebook, and you can share it all the way out. And the purpose of this is always to bring understanding. That's the key to life. I base everything off relationships. I've been married for 20 years, a long time. You have to have some type of communication. That's the only way you survive. Communication is the key to life to me. Whether it's picking up a piece of paper, whether it's going out taking the garbage outside, it's a communicated act. Everything is done through communication. So the best way to solve any issue is what? Communicate. And that's what it's for. Whether it's a hard conversation, whether it's a good one, it needs to be had and needs to be told, and your side needs to be heard. So that's the reason we do it. So the officer side can be heard, the community side can be heard. And what does that do? That puts us together. It unites us. It puts us in a good, safe space. I like to look at it. Me and Chief talked about it a few times. Back in my day when we grew up, it was always, ain't you Danny's boy? My father's name is Danny. If an officer seen me, ain't you Danny's boy? Yes, sir. Do I need to tell him? No. I'd rather go to jail back then than go home to the old man. That's how we rolled back in the day. And that has left. The fear has been misplaced. So when God gave me this to do, it is a challenge because you can't, it's always a challenge to broaden. You have so much politics that we have to deal with. And we understand the safety and the safe hold of officers with the politics. But what I don't understand is why we just can't gain understanding with each other. That's what I'm here for. And that's what One Blood is here for. So we're going to get this thing on and popping, man. Thank you, Elizabeth. Always, Miss Beautiful, Miss Addie. I want you to introduce yourself and tell your business and what you do, and then we'll hit the crowd, okay? Go ahead, Miss Addie.
Welcome, 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 everybody. I'm Addie Banks, and I am a Black history advocate. And I have a podcast, No Black History on Patreon. You need to subscribe. I also teach race relations. I have a course, Understanding Race Relations in America, at udemy.com, but you'll be hearing more from me. And I came today so I can hear from you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth McCullough. I am the founder of the Racial Equality Coalition in Clayton, North Carolina. We are just a little over a year old now. And just like One Blood Movement of Unity, our mission is to bring people together. It's to just break down barriers and open up communication between all different people, all different backgrounds, and build a stronger community together.
Awesome, awesome. She's been working with us too. It's been a blessing to meet and collaborate with different organizations that are doing wonderful things. We're going to start with Chief Caps.
Absolutely. Good evening, ladies. Pleasure to see you. Folks, good evening. My name is Lawrence.
Not hearing you. Not hearing you.
It's on now, Miss Eddie.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, that's better.
Yes.
And good evening, you folks. My name is Lawrence Capps. I have the pleasure of serving as police chief for the town of Knightdale, which is just a short trip up Shotwell Road and then down Bethlehem, and you're in the big city of Knightdale. I've been in law enforcement now for about 22 years. I've served in a lot of different capacities. Have served here in Johnston County previously for about half of my career. Spent a little bit of time working in the prison as well. I've been exposed to a lot, been very fortunate to be around some great people over the course of my career and my life as well. As always, thanks to Fred for inviting me to participate, and I certainly don't mind being on the hot seat. I enjoy these conversations, as he said. The only way to build relationships is to communicate. Communication leads to trust. Trust leads to stronger bonds between people. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you. We're going to go down the line to Scott, man. He's a pastor as well. I'm trying to get the volume.
Are we good?
We good.
Okay. My name is Scott Bolton. I'm a pastor at White Oak Baptist Church up in Archer Lodge. And my wife, Jennifer, right here. And I also have the opportunity to serve as the chaplain for the Cornholders High School football team.
Hi there, my name is Wayne Wallace. I'm a local State Farm agent here in Clayton. And I'm also one of the elders here at the Church of Clayton Crossings, and really looking forward to pushing this dialogue forward.
Andre Roosh, I'm the pastor here at Clayton Crossings, and what a privilege it is to be able to host this and to meet Fred and to have this discussion. I'm really excited about it. I think it's needed, and we want to see all we can do to see unity here in the town of Clayton. So we're thrilled to be a part of this.
Hi, my name is Mandy Harris. I am a Reiki practitioner, a mom. I'm a member of the Racial Equality Coalition and an advocate for bringing unity to our community. I'm very happy to be here today. I'm happy to see what I can learn myself to kind of get a better understanding of what goes on in our community and how to make it better, and to maybe help bring light to anything I can to help our community grow and unite.
My name is Brian Wilson. I'm the associate pastor at White Oak Baptist Church. I came mostly to learn and to grow and to listen and to support my pastor here also. And so I'm excited to do that together with everybody.
Hi, my name is Sharon Eaton, and I am a resident of Clayton. And I was invited here by my husband, who was invited by, So I want to be the change that I want to see. So I'm here to learn how I can do more in the community.
And of course, I'm her husband, Clarence, native of Clinton County. So we've been here 5 years, and Clayton is really growing. So we are contractors here, and we're here to see a change, so we're here to do what we got to do and support it,
This is BJ. Hey family, this is BJ. We got BJ in the house. She is the councilman for they gonna add it.
My name is BJ Council, retired deputy chief from Durham PD. I have a business called UN50, and I go around teaching primarily Black and brown folks, but it's good for anybody on how to safely interact with law enforcement. The ultimate goal is for people to get home.
Man, I tell you, but we got some fire in here today, but they're gonna be under the fire here in a minute once we get these questions rolling. Okay, y'all, we're gonna go ahead and get it on and pop it, man. As always, we like I said, we have fun with it, but we are serious with it. But why? Because we want to make sure everybody gets an understanding of what's going on in the community and why we need to improve it. We see a lot in America that has been just torment towards oh. Well, let's make it. Amen. But we're gonna start it off, family. We're gonna get it off, and I'm gonna start with the first question, and it says, as a parent or a current student, this is to the audience from the police officers. You know, normally, guys, we have been always asking the officers the questions, but today I wanted to switch it up because I wanted to make sure that it's a fair game. Is that okay? It's gonna be okay, right? All right, so I'm asking the community coming from the officers. It says, as a parent or current student, would you support a middle school or high school elective curriculum that discusses constitutional law, the history of policing in America? Wow, this is a good one. Police legitimacy and methods for building, maintaining trust between police and the communities they serve. That's the first part of that question. Anybody want to take off and see the mic? Whoever wants to take it, I'm with it. I know Mandy, she's ready. And then Liz, I'll bring you in just a second. You can go ahead. You can go ahead, Pastor.
Absolutely. I just know from my personal experience, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I actually was involved in police athletic leagues and those different types of programs. And so I think the more you're around officers and you get to know them as human beings, the more you understand them and the job they're trying to do. I have a lot of first responders that are friends of mine and people are parts of our church. And I think it's just the education of seeing them as people. And one thing that's really stuck with me is, you know, police officers usually interact with the public on their worst day, you know, and if they can be seen in that light, it would help to bridge that gap between the two. So education obviously is incredibly important, and knowing the history of that and where we are to where we are today, I think would be incredibly beneficial to all students to know why we have what we have, why we have police officers, why we have law enforcement, what are the needs that they need as well. So I would agree with that.
Does anybody know what's currently being taught in our schools? I mean, I think that's a good question, and then how we can build on it from there. I don't know.
Right now, nothing's been taught. That's something I'm working on now, is to actually put a curriculum in there that actually teaches. Miss Addie has a great one. It's actually true history. Miss Addie called it true history, and I agree with her. And what it is, it's not Black history, it's not white history, it's not Indian history, it's not Mexican history, it's American history, which is the depth and the pain, the suffering, the overcome of each individual, not just a group. Are you with me, Ms. Eddie?
Yes, I am.
Indeed,
I don't know if that was my invitation to speak on this, but
yes, that was.
but I always jump right in because
Yes.
if critical means criticism, then I think we need to change to the other definition of critical, meaning necessary, imperative, important. It is critical that we understand American history. What is difficult is that truth sometimes hurts, because truth cannot be anything but true. And it's difficult to face those truths when we are embarrassed, when we are ashamed, And when we're forced to think about what our forebears have done, I believe that part of the healing in America is learning the truth of our history. But I want that truth to be balanced, because you need to know how many white men and women lost their lives and their livelihoods and their fortunes because they were on the right side of justice. My thing is, when we approach this with love, respect, and do no harm to each other, then we are looking at it from a godly plane. That's all I have to say.
Amen.
I agree with Miss Addie. I think she made a lot of good points. I think it's something, this change in education, or this expansion in education, is something that is critical. It's very necessary. A lot of the issues that are going on right now are issues that are embedded into the foundation of our country, into different avenues of institutions. So to fix it and to heal what's been going on here for hundreds of years, the only way we're going to do that is to start in what's embedded in those institutions. We have to start with the younger generation. We have to make them aware of where we're coming from, where we're heading. I think that we have to give everybody the chance to have the same opportunity, to have a viable opportunity should they have to interact with law enforcement, to know how to do that, to know how to, what to expect, what the goal is of that interaction, what they can do, and what they can expect should be done towards them in a respectful manner, how to handle when it's not. There's just so many issues that I think that it's really imperative that, you know, our younger generation understand the true history of America. I do think that, you know, in reality, it's not something that's going to easily be done without stepping on some toes. I think that we have to, you know, it's not going to be gumdrops and rainbows. I think that, you know, there's going to be, you know, a lot of figuring out how to present this in a way that's not going to further divide, but actually truly unite, and truly unite people by giving them a greater understanding. Most people, I feel like nowadays, sit in a place of not really knowing what the issues are. And I think that when you're an adult, you get caught up in your daily life and getting food on the table, getting paid, you know, going to work, taking care of the kids, running them around. There's so much going on that it's hard to really, for most people, dedicate the time to learning and to getting that understanding on their own. But if we start in the schools with children, it will just be a part of who they are and how they grow. And I think that that will do so much for healing. And I think it will, you know, it will be key to bringing about the change and the unity, and to starting them young to seeing outside of their own perspective, but for everybody to be able to see that this is the world we share together, and we have different experiences, but we need to lend those experiences to each other to come together and to grow as a community.
Yeah.
Not to deviate from what she's, because it is very necessary. But you know, as a parent of 4 children, I think it definitely have to start in the home and then spread abroad, because we have to teach our kids to be respectful. You get respect when you give respect, you get respect. Definitely, you know, in the law enforcement, I taught my kids, you know, be respectful. If they tell you to do something, do it. Whether it's right or wrong, it's no right, it's no wrong. Just do what they ask you to do. Keep you in a safe place. And it definitely have to start in the home and then spread abroad, to the schools. Schools have to teach the same thing. What we don't know, we can't teach them. But what the schools know, they definitely can, take that place. So it's definitely important, necessary.
A curriculum for parents and teachers that has to be created. I've been mentoring for over 20 years, and I say something, and you go back home, and they say the opposite. So when they come back to me the next day, not only do I have to repeat it, but I have to drill it. And then they go back at home again. Well, that ain't right. Well, at this point in time now, it's me and daddy finna have a conversation. And once me and Pop have a conversation, because you got to go for the leader. You don't need to talk. I'm not saying we don't talk to women. I'm just saying I go for the leader of the home, hoping that it's him if he's wearing the pants. And that's the conversation that we have between parents and teachers. And then you create that curriculum from there. That's how you move it. It's generational, in my opinion. It's generational. In order to move something out and eradicate something, you have to be generational. It has to be moved out. Israel went 40 years before they was able to move. So it has to be moved out for generational in order for it to be moved. That's just my opinion. Anybody else?
I'll just say one thing is that when you begin teaching this in schools, you're teaching the children how to interact with law enforcement, but you're also creating an environment where the next generation of law enforcement officers have a foundation of what it means to build trust and to interact well with others. They know whenever they're old enough to be in that situation as a leader, they don't just know how to interact with other police officers as a kid. Whenever they're in that situation, when they're the one that has the badge, they know what it should look like. So.
Somebody once said that trust is the foundational piece to any relationship, right? And where I think we find ourselves is the African American community and our brothers and sisters from the Black community. There is, to some degree, almost a natural distrust for each other in the most stressful situations, right? So in the best of situations, just natural distrust, and then you overlay that in a stressful situation, and then it makes it ripe for there to be problems. And so if you're going to do curriculum, this should be a curriculum delivered by law enforcement involvement, right? And so when you have a curriculum delivered by law enforcement involvement, with law enforcement involvement, then people get an opportunity to hear the fears, the concerns from the side of law enforcement. Law enforcement gets an opportunity to hear the fears, concerns from people of color. And then you start gaining understanding. And Fred talked about, communicating, right? But one of the biggest things in communication is listening. And most of us don't listen. Most of us go straight to defending where we're at and validating where we're at without listening. And so if we can just step back and start listening to each side, then we start gaining understanding.
Are there resource officers in schools now? Or is there DARE programs and those types of things in our school districts? Because I just know in the hallways, I had officers that were coaches, teachers, resource officers, and just seemed to be able to bridge that gap a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I can answer that question. And it's yes, there are school resource officers in our schools. To the degree that they're in all of our schools, that's not necessarily the case. I'm going to speak specifically to my organization and to our school resource officers because it's what I can definitively talk about and feel confident in saying. Our school resource officers are primarily in our high schools. And one of the things that we are very proud of is working with the administration and with staff to involve those school resource officers in mentoring opportunities, involving those school resource officers in teaching in the schools. The high school has a public safety academy trying to expose individuals, who have sort of a public service mindset already at an early age, to what it's like to come out of high school and to perhaps pursue a career in firefighting or law enforcement or emergency services. One of the other things that we do through our school resource officer program is work to deliver a number of outreach programs. So we do a monthly summer program called Camp Pride. We also teach a new DARE curriculum in the local elementary schools as well. It's not probably the same DARE curriculum that you and I remember when we were coming through grade school, but it does focus obviously on drug awareness and prevention, but it also focuses on character building, decision making, and some of those other development tools that are really important for a kid who's in the 5th grade, getting ready to make that transition into middle school, where the social life is going to expand and they're going to be faced with a lot of choices, tough decisions. One of the other things that we are looking to do and to expand through our school resource officer program is something very similar to what this question pertains to. And I think to the point that you made, sir, a few moments ago about the officers being involved in teaching a program that focuses on, to the young lady's point a few moments ago, the true history of America. And when you look at that honestly and objectively, you have to acknowledge that, there have been places in history that they haven't been good. And you have to acknowledge some of the issues with the history of policing. And I think that's the only way that you move forward, to build an understanding and to start to develop those relationships based on trust. But I think having the officers involved in doing some of that teaching is very, very important because it's putting a person in front of another person. It's forcing, the situation where it's hard to ignore, it's hard to look away, it's hard not to listen, when that person who is so similar to you in a lot of ways, is standing there and telling, what their experiences are and vice versa. Again, it's the kind of interaction, to the point that you made a few moments ago. Trust is the linchpin of all human relations. You're exactly right. And I think this is a meaningful way to do it. We're appreciative of the way that our school resource officers are involved. And to your point a few moments ago, it can't just be left to the school resource officer. It can't just be left to the school. Can't just be left to our pastors and our community leaders. It really does have to start in the home and with the families. And so collectively together with a unity of purpose and with a shared vision about what that outcome look like, we may end up seeing some impressive change come out of all of those interactions with all of us involved in particular ways. Thank you.
What was that?
Did you have something?
Oh, no, I agree with mostly what everyone was saying. I think it would be really beneficial to have more officer presence in our schools. When I was growing up, I moved here from New York, but I don't recall, honestly, any officers really coming into the school to talk to us, either explaining what would be expected of us. And that was a conversation I've actually had a few times since then. When you get your permit at a young age, for example, and you start driving. I didn't start driving till later in life, but I think that was more of a New York thing. But you don't know what's expected of you until you find yourself in a situation, and all of a sudden, you're stressed out usually. I think someone had said it's usually you see people at your worst or at their worst. So then you're not thinking clearly. You make bad decisions that you wouldn't normally have made, and things can escalate really quickly without anybody having any bad intent. And I think if there was just a little more guidance, if you got to know some of the officers in your community, again, getting to know faces and them getting to know you, and feeling a little more calm when you find yourself in that situation, knowing what that interaction is going to be like, at least what it should be like, I think would help on both sides. I think that that can just only bring positive things all the way around.
I think we learn more in our pain. That's when you learn the most. You got to think about when you're happy, you don't want to learn nothing. You just want to stay happy. It's the moment. But when you're in pain, I got to figure out how to get out of this. This hurts. So you learn something, and it's sad, but it's true. And the pain is we don't have enough education. My buddy Corey, the one that's not here right now, but we and him talked about it a few times, because I made a statement. I said, "Man, what's up with the bad officers?" And he corrected me. Honestly, he said, "Fred, it's not bad officers; it's untrained officers." And I had to flip it. Well, I said, "Well, we have untrained community as well." Like you said, it's not at home, and if it's not done at home, I'm sorry, I'm old school. If you ain't putting that belt to the backside, that child need to go outside. I mean, I'm fine. We didn't get whoopings, we got killings. That's a new. It was child abuse. Man, if I can go back and get paid for that, be wrong. But that's it. That's the game plan. You know, is to bring that kind of structured love back into society. We gotta teach the parents. And I've been coaching football for years. The way I get a child to really learn it and really do something, I have to go educate the parent on what I'm teaching them. And once the parent gets on board with me and starts implementing it at home, that's when it's learned in the child's mind. And that's the same concept we have to do now. Anybody else have anything to say about that? That was a good one. We're gonna move along to the next one. Chief,
Before you do that, turn the camera so I can see the gentleman who last spoke, so that we can. There
it is.
we
Yep,
go.
almost. There it is.
We want to see all those intelligent faces.
There we go.
There you go.
Good deal. All right, it says, if you were in a law enforcement leader or elected official, what specific tool, training, support, policy, or mandate would you implement to help officers be better at their jobs? That's a good one. I like that one. Who wants to take that one first? Any takers? Who wants to take that one first? That's a good one. Yeah.
Can you hear me? All right. For me, it's one of the biggest things I think is also brought up in the next question, with the level of wellness. I think mental health for police officers, for society in general, we have really got to start addressing mental health. I can't imagine. I just think as a mom, the stress that I have on a daily basis, taking care of 4 people in one household. And then, somebody, the little one has a tantrum and meltdown, or the older one gets an attitude, or something happens to cause an additional stress to that. How that is for me as a mom of just 4 people in a household. What is it like for law enforcement officers? They have a whole community to take care of, and they have stuff coming at them constantly that, you don't know. They don't get up in the morning. They don't know, most people go to work. They know what they're going to be doing for the day. They have things constantly coming up, and I can't imagine the amount of stress, and they have to keep their, they have to maintain even under all that stress. I think that addressing mental health, and not just, fixing it or attending to mental health, but addressing what is mental health. What does it look like when someone needs to address their mental health? What does it look like when an officer has had, a 24-hour shift and they've dealt with, all these horrendous things, and then they have to go home, they've got 8 hours and they've got to be back and do it again the next day. Where do they decompress? Where do they go to kind of process the things that they have experienced throughout the day?
Yeah.
How do they kind of clear that out so they can go back in the next day and do it all over again? So I think that that's just something we've got to, in society in general, but especially with law enforcement, they need to be taken care of too. We got to make sure for them to be able to serve our communities, they have to be taken care of. And we have to make sure that, they have what they need to stay well.
No, you hit it. I agree. I know you want to say something?
Yes, in the business that I am, contract business, I've always learned one thing, and that's people training. Like if we working in a house, they always tell me, if you don't like it, then do it where you would like it. I think that if we can, put that in for public wise, how would you see yourself? If it's something you don't like, then do it to a point where you may like it. What I'm trying to say is, if I'm building a house and it doesn't look good to me, then it can't look good to no one else. So build it to where I think that I would live in. So to say, to an officer, what would you do if you're in a situation? Look at yourself on the other side of the situation, like it's you and not the other person, and build on that. Like the man in the mirror. You look at yourself and see how you want things to be better for you, and then you work toward that to make things better, for others. But we all work together to try to see things, the same.
I agree both. I mean, all the way, because I have 4 kids. I've been blessed. Two older sons, one's in college, Shaw. One's a senior and coin holders. It's hit. It's caught back and almost there. And then my 2 babies, which will probably never leave, but it is what it is. Those are my girls. But when I look at it, me and Caps has talked about this quite a bit. I mean, BJ has discussed this too, and I agree with both. But the thing I look at, if I was an officer with 2 black sons in this world now, what we're dealing with, it's hard to send them out. Even though I have faith and I pray them, we do all that greatness, but it's extremely hard to send that kind of mindset out at a youth area now that they're black kids. So what am I thinking? Knowing what I see consistently all the time on the news, but knowing what I talk about with my brother and my sister, the way that they're performing it. And BJ's told me this plenty of times, she can't control the mindset of each officer. Very true. People always say what they say, you can't lead a horse to the you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. This is my thing with that. Teach him how to drink it. Leave him there if he won't drink it, that's fine. We'll teach him how. We have a lot of officers out there that wants it, that is grieved for it, that loves it, but they don't know how to drink that water. That's the training. We have to supply the training, and that goes home first, then out to the world. That's my opinion. What, one of y'all got something? Miss Eddie, come on now. You're looking right lovely. Go on, give it to me. Give it to me.
Actually, I don't have anything to say because I'm not a police officer. I hear your perspectives. I'm old school. I raised my children with the police is your friend. If anything goes wrong, you seek out a policeman. So I'm gonna hand it back to you.
Okay, that's good. And BJ, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think this question is related to, I just got through doing about 150 kids at Kinston Rochelle Middle School talking about law enforcement, how to safely interact. We were talking about what we also know, this gentleman is Clayton. Thank you. Is the training, BLET, basic law enforcement training, is basically the same as it was 40 years ago. A lot of the curriculum is basically the same. And it deals with, officers investigating, how to protect yourself, shooting, driving, those types of things. They have incorporated communications, but it's like a communication class for maybe 8 hours. Personally, that probably needs to go up to 40 hours. So that's a community thing as far as looking at how are they being trained. And then when they get to organizations like his and they believe in doing that, going beyond what BLET, as far as I'm concerned, should change anyway, because a lot of agencies can't afford to do extra training once they get out. But that's something that the public has to talk about, and you have to be aware of that. So when we look at BLET, I don't know about how old he is, but I know I'm old. And when I look at that curriculum and I see, God, they were teaching that one, and I was 1981, and that's not good. So that's the core thing that people don't understand about law enforcement. Law enforcement has this barrier of not letting external in folks come in who are professionals to teach us how to communicate, diversity training and implicit bias training, collegiate, they don't let academia in, who understand and do the studying. So the industry has a lot of change. Just to talk about some of the other things, the first thing, we got to admit the role of law enforcement in this country. And once we acknowledge that, take on that responsibility, that's when things are going to start changing.
That's really well said, and you're right, because the last major update to the basic law enforcement training curriculum was in 2000. That was 21 years ago. Now, I can tell you, and I was actually privileged enough to be contacted today about serving on a committee for some upcoming changes to the program, but yet and still, and I don't say this as an indictment against the profession. I don't say this as an indictment against anyone. I'm just saying that it's the reality of what we're dealing with. The basic law enforcement training curriculum is a shade under 700 total hours of training that spans across about a semester's worth of academics and hands-on practical applications and skills testing, things of that nature. That is less training than your barber received to learn how to cut hair. And I can say with absolute confidence that there is a huge training gap in where we are and where we should be in terms of our title as professionals. Think about all the other professionals that you know in different fields. And I want you to think about the amount of education and the amount of training and the constant continuing education and improvement that goes into honing that craft. And it may seem a little comical, but you can even apply that to our professional athletes. Think about it. They're involved in their craft for a season, whether it's 16 games, 82 games, 164 games. They're involved in their craft for a defined season. And when that season's over, the first thing that they do is they rest, they recover. And then it's right back into training and preparation and film review. And, they're even changing the roster to make sure that they got the right people in the right places. But they spend a considerable amount of time in preparation for what is going to be another relatively short season of focusing on their craft. Now apply what we know about the law enforcement profession. We're going to work 12-hour shifts, probably rotating between days and nights. It's going to be a struggle, like the deputy chief said, to fit most of your mandated training into a schedule like that. Never mind trying to do more training to get your officers to a level of knowledge and professionalism and competence that most of them want to be at. And that most of the police leaders want their officers to be at that level. It literally is. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of funding. It is a matter of insisting on that level of training and professionalism. Robert Kennedy said many, many years ago that every society is going to get the criminal that it deserves. Whatever we tolerate as a society, whatever we allow as a society, expect to get that kind of criminal from your practices, your politics, or whatever else. But in that same breath, he also said that every community will get the kind of law enforcement that it insists upon. And so I think it's going to be a matter of the public, the people saying, we insist, we demand a level of training, a level of investment in these men and women who are going to go out there and they are going to do a job that swings from one end of the spectrum to another. They can be engaged in as a counselor at Camp Pride, fun, elation, and they may go on shift that evening, and pardon my morbidity, but they may be picking up body parts off of a railroad track. The human mind and the human psyche wasn't, I don't think, meant to kind of go from those extremes to the other, but that is the reality. And I think it speaks to kind of that next question about the investment that we've got to begin making in these men and women, and not just law enforcement, but I think emergency responders, first responders in general, because firefighters, EMTs, they see that same kind of trauma, and it stays with them. But I could go down a long rabbit trail on that. I won't in the interest of time, but kind of leave it there to say that it may be that we're reaching a place where the kind of law enforcement training and professionalism, we just need to insist on something more. We just have to.
How do we get here? Because, you hear of the BLM movement versus the BLM organization, right? And part of the BLM movement, talked about defunding the police. But when you strip that down, the feeling behind that phrase was, we need to, since dollars are a finite resource, right? How do we reallocate some of these dollars and pour them into exactly what you're talking about? Because just on a regular basis, right? We in America spend a lot of money on drugs, right? Meaning pills, stuff, so that people who are chubby like myself, so our sugars don't get high. And we spend a whole lot less money on the preventative piece. And we do that across all areas, right? So how do we remove the stigma that comes with defunding the police, when a big part of that is, no, we need to completely revamp what our current training, right, looks like, and pour into the mental health, pour into the BLET, so that our officers and the people who are interacting on the streets are in a much healthier place to deal with the very things they're going to face in public.
Right.
Because what happens is you've got folks of color who are trying to get home. You got law enforcement who are also trying to get home, right? So both sets of people have the same end goal. We're just trying to make it home. But you're both faced with, people of color, what you hear in the news, and the family history, right? Oral history, which is police supposed to be a friend, but they're killing unarmed Black people all over the place, right? That's what we hear. And so that becomes, that becomes what we believe. And so that becomes what we act on. And then police officers, we're going, man, I really can't trust that person of color because they're all gangbangers. I had a good friend of mine who was a police officer, and he said to me, he goes, Wayne, I am so happy I know you, because what I deal with on the streets, and this is his perception, right, of people who look like you, mean me no good. So they're going to the situation already hands on the gun, because they know that if they look like me, they mean me no good. And he had a person of color getting pulled over by a cop who's been told, whether through oral history or what they've learned on the news, that the police officers mean you no good. And so have a very volatile situation with two sets of people who have the same end goal, just trying to make it home.
And I don't know that I have the perfect answer to that question, but what I can say is that something you just mentioned resonates with me. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Something that you just said resonates with me, and that is some people's views and beliefs about a certain thing are experiential. And what I mean by that is you've lived them, that you've experienced them, you've come face to face with them, you've been exposed to that thing. And for some of us, our beliefs, our views, our thoughts, whether they are right or wrong, are things that we are taught. My question becomes about your friend is his reality? Is it something that's based on experience and exposure? Is that something that he was taught to feel, that he was, challenged to believe or led to believe? And whether we're being taught those things in the home, whether we're being taught them in the school, whether we're being taught them in the BLET programs, whether we're being taught those sorts of things in our law enforcement organizations, I think there has to be, kind of a focus on the things that we do have in common, some of those shared end goals, that you mentioned. I wish I could remember the name of the gentleman that told me this a long time ago, early on in my career. But he said something to the effect of, the police should not be hated or distrusted in the communities where they are the most needed. But the reality is that sometimes exists. And so why does that exist? Is there something on one side? Is there something on both sides where the thought processes, the views, the beliefs aren't driven by something experiential, but rather they are driven by things that are inappropriately taught? I think maybe some of that might be the case. To the other point that you were making about kind of reshaping that conversation. Again, I don't know that I have the perfect answer, but I wonder if it is simply a matter of semantics. Is the terminology defund the police? Does it stir such a connotation that it's hard to move past that to truly understand what individuals may be trying to say? Is it more of a conversation about, investing, in our society and recognizing that, that's going to require perhaps an investment in law enforcement and training, also going to require an investment in, mental health and, helping people move past that stigma that you talked about a few moments ago. There's so much to unpack there. The great thing about it is there's a lot of content to talk about. There's a lot of ways for us to begin conversations around those things to try to identify maybe better answers than I am able to provide, to your question. And like I said, I think once we can begin to have some of those kinds of conversations to unpack some things, maybe shift away from semantics and, kind of focus on the deeper meaning, maybe we'll get there. I'll be the first to say that, people in my community, people anywhere, if we want to sit down and have a hard, conversation and a real conversation about things that police should be doing versus the, duties and tasks and jobs and functions that, police officers shouldn't be doing, I will have that conversation. And I think, for me, this is just my view, but it appears that a lot of the things that we are asked to do as police officers that aren't necessarily law enforcement related are things that were kind of given to us over time. And I think it once started from a place of trust. Okay, who do we know that's on duty 24/7, that's got resources and people, and you can get them at a moment's notice, who can come to a crisis and keep it calm and resolved. And if they can't fix it, they can at least figure out where it needs to go from there. I wonder who we could give that to. Well, we all know the answer to that question, right? And over time, I think, and I think at one time we were at a place maybe where people trusted the police to be that kind of first responder to all of those kinds of situations. And the police, willing and happy to serve, kept saying, yeah, absolutely. We'll be happy to do that. We'll be glad to take that on. But you can only put so much in one basket before it starts spilling over. And I don't care how much training you have. You can only be an expert in so many things and do so many things well at one time. And so there, again, redefining our craft, figuring out the things that are on our plate that are better suited for other subject matter experts. That's not an unreasonable conversation to have. What it looks like in terms of, the end solution, I don't know. But as I said, happy to be a part of that conversation. I don't know if you got anything to add, Deputy Chief. You've been in the game a while.
Well, I was in a game. I can, yeah, I can speak freely because I'm not attached to the uniform anymore. So I just want to kind of talk about the defund stuff that you were talking about. I guess it also depends on what your community has an expectation as to what you want your law enforcement to do. We did a mock defund Durham PD on my podcast, and we got rid of, 20, 60 officers, about several $1 million. And what we're trying to get the community to say, if you want to defund the police, go ahead and do that.
There's a cost for that, right?
Well, what you got to do is explain to people, there's always going to be someone answering 911. Someone's always going to be investigating a crime. Someone's always going to do a couple of things that law enforcement is suited to do. But if you want the PAL, the neighborhood watch, the crime prevention, that's where the administrator is going to cut. So you don't have the warm and fuzzies that the community wants. And so you got to make a decision. We're going to get to you, but we're not going to have the officer come and sit and have a conversation with you because you've gotten rid of that. And then you also got to figure out where, if by the time it gets to law enforcement, are you chief? I apologize, I didn't know, Chief Lawrence. You got to decide on what is it that you want, because basically when it gets to law enforcement, like he said, that means every other system has failed. And we need to recognize that as a community. Every other system has failed. There's nothing more frustrating than a police officer goes somewhere needing assistance or trying to help someone in domestic violence. And you call domestic violence and they go, we don't have any more room. Social worker, child abuse, we don't have any space. So you're looking, for me, in the world that I move in, you're looking in the wrong place. You're looking in, I don't know what it is in this area, but city government for me in Durham takes care of my lights and my waters. And my water, right, and my roads. The county takes care of my social work, my soft services, my mental health, my drug abuse. But yet, the community is yelling at the city to take care of all this on the back of law enforcement. So first of all, the community has to be educated as to where do we want to fix this? And like you said, in the schools, and you got to figure out, we're going to defund, if that's what you want to do, then the money has to go there. Well, if that's where you're getting the money out of the pot, it has to go to where you want the services. Does that make sense? Because I can't deal with mental health because that's not my forte. And I'm not going to come into your home and deal with you when my average time response call, because you want me to get to your call quickly, I'm getting to your calls in less than 6 minutes. I can't solve your problem in 6 minutes. So you got to come into the room, like he said, and talk to us, figure out what you want as a community. So let's say an individual is having some mental health issues in a business community, right? They call the police. BJ, come get BJ because you cray. She's in my business again, right? Police come there, chase him, might even actually abuse him. And now you're mad at the officer because they've kind of used excessive force on this mentally ill person, right? Because the business community is like, y'all got to do something with BJ, right? And so they do. But why don't you have a meeting with the business community and say, how do we keep BJ out of your community or get her the resources that she needs and not have it come through law enforcement? Those are the kind of conversations that are difficult to have. It is costly. And those are the things that people are not willing to discuss. And so it's, it's deep and it's long because it's been this way and it's going to take a minute to do that. And just briefly about the training, I think about the training, for me, the way I've been reading articles about, we are trained as officers to basically like you said, we want to go home. So the training basically says you do everything to stay safe and get home. So I look at everybody as something that may end up hurting me. You're a threat to me getting home. So I'm operating at that level. And then what I'm trying to teach people is if you do what you need to do, remain calm, comply and complain, then the officer starts to kind of ease it down possibly. But if you do a reaction, view an action, there's going to always be a reaction. So we got to get people to understand that. And the training may need to change, that not everybody's a bad person, that you stop. And so and we're trained that way. I mean, that is pounded into us. I don't know whether it's changed, but it's pounded into us because I want to go home. So when you tell me you're not getting out of the vehicle, I actually have a physical reaction to that. Because what that means to me, I now have to put my hands on you. And as a human being that happens to be a police officer, I do not want to put my hands on you. Because I want to go home. It's a job. Y'all don't pay me that kind of money. And so that's the kind of that. So I need people to understand that we're trained. We like you said, we want to go home, and so we operate at this until I feel safe. I'm operating up here. And now with everything that's going on, the last thing I'll say is that today's youth, 2012, Trayvon Martin. If a child was 10 years old, when that happened to Trayvon Martin, even though that wasn't a police issue, everything else that has happened till this point is all they know. So that child is now 22 years old. Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Abram, all of this. But in their mind, only thing police officers do is kill Black people. And we need to understand that because that's all they've known, and that's how, and so they're angry, they're terrified. And as law enforcement officers need to understand that. We talk about lived experience. You may not understand it, but you need to understand that youth today are afraid of that because for the last 10 or 15 years, that's all they've seen. And they've only seen it in 30 and 40-second clips. They don't go back and look at the whole story. I go back and look at the whole story because of the work that I do. So I can tell you, well, here's the rest of the story. For those of you that understand this statement, Paul Harvey, here's the rest of the story. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But they are being told to stay in your car, don't move. You know, a few years ago, if an officer was pulling someone over, they was being told to drive to a light. Drive to a light. Now, if you driving 5 miles down the road to get to a light, yes, the officer is already pissed off because you drove too long. But you're just trying to get to a light where, you know, things can be seen in the light and nothing happens, you know, in the light, usually. So we're trying to tell our kids go to a safe place so that when something goes on, or even with officers wearing, you know, cameras now, we don't know where the camera's at. We don't know if they're on or not, but we're being told, don't move the hand on the steering wheel. Officer telling you to get out the car. We're not getting out because we don't want to move. We're scared to move. You know, so, I mean, we have to be, there's got to be some literature where, you know, we can give our kids at home, read this, you know, so you can understand if you're in that predicament, you know, like you say, don't get nervous, calm down, and because the officer's peeking, so he has to calm down. But I think when we was growing up, you know, officers to us was like mentors. I mean, they told us, you know, don't get in trouble. And they would sit down and talk with us before, you know, even if we weren't doing anything wrong, they would walk up to us and tell us, but you know, that was a long time ago, something. And to me, I think that was a great thing to do. And it builds trust. You know, you don't see an officer the way someone portrayed them. You know, somebody can put so much in your head and you start thinking the same thing. But in mentorship, I don't think you will see it that way. You'll see it a little different and say, well, you know, officers can be your mentor. Regardless, they do have a job. They have to do the job. If you're a criminal, you're gonna get treated like a criminal. But if not, you know, you can get treated very well, and they can mentor to you, and you can take it and mentor to someone else, and you know, and start building from there. You changing the minds setting of people who have, you know, dark clouds about officers in their mind. So we all have to work together to do that. It's going to take.
I push back on that a little bit. I don't want anybody treating anybody like criminals. I want everybody treating everybody like human beings.
Right.
Because we need to go home. So basically, I hear what you're saying about this is what we're being told, and that's what I teach. I teach people how to interact, what you need to do. I don't know whether the chief agreed, but I think based on what I'm teaching, most law enforcement that I talk to now, what they want you to do if you're feeling uncomfortable, slow down, turn the lights on and put your flashes on and pull over when you feel safe, because they understand that. And most of us have cell phones. And if you're that nervous, dial 911 and say, I'm on the corner of Main and trying to get to my house, please. And they'll let the officer know what you're doing. So that's the information that I'm trying to relay so they can understand what that is. Now, I really don't expect you to drive all the way to Smithfield. I can't help you once you have that. But they understand that in this moment, people are nervous and afraid. Officers are also heightened too because they have to deal with that as well too. So it's about education, and also everybody has to understand that officer is not Officer Chauvin. And they also have to understand that officers are individuals who make individual decisions, just like you're making an individual decision. And what I try to get people to understand, it is a large industry, just like anything else. And we just got to figure out how we slowly get there. And that is through knowledge. And when law enforcement is willing to say to you, I'm willing to just tell you, I want you to know your rights. People just don't know their basic rights. That's why I do what I do. You do not have to talk to the popo. 12 ops. You can apply the Fifth Amendment to yourself. They understand that. Now, I mean, they're not going to talk to you, but you know what your rights are. A couple of things, and you can be safe. So, thanks.
We really got to work on the community part of it, especially home, because court. We always discuss this. You can't have court on the side of the road. And with BJ, we all when we talked a while back, I agree with everything she said. The pushback is just to open up conversation. So like I'm a carrier, and I agree with you. There's no pushback, but you know how we do. But I play Angels Advocate with BJ. I love it. But I'm a carrier, so I'm a concealed carrier. I carry all the time. Doesn't matter. I was raised that way. So when I get stopped, and I'm a warrior as well. So if you walk up on me slow. Don't walk up on me fast, because I don't know. You don't know my mindset. You don't know what I'm thinking. You don't know what kind of day I've had. I don't know what kind of day you've had. So if we both don't know what kind of day we had, and you walk up on me like you ain't got no sense, my first reaction is to knock you out before you get to me, or take you out before you get to me. But the mindset has to be taught at home and with the community to say, hey, yo, you don't know what kind of day he's had. He might have seen something traumatic that happened on the bridge, or knocked out, or somebody brains laid on the floor, or whatever. We don't know. My day could have been jacked up at work, could have had a mishap with the wife. That's always any man that's been married. You start in the morning, you got jacked up. The rest of your day is just jacked up. It is what it is until you get it right at home. You feel what I'm saying? But you don't know that when you walk out the house, or when you meet or come in contact with an officer, and they don't know it as well. So what's the best solution? Stay calm. Don't have court on the side of the road until we get to the end of the conversation. And how hard is that? It's extremely hard when one comes with the ego. I'm in charge, not you. Well, see, I'm a boss. I'm Fred Foreman Sr. Wherever these feet go, I'm in charge. I'm the boss. Why? Because I'm the boss of my flesh. So when egos like that meet, it's like, wait a minute, bro. The other one's like, wait a minute, bro. So now we got a mesh that has that wall between two. Like, you can't knock me and I can't knock you. Somebody's got to win. The way we win it is this right here, is the communication. The way we defeat it is consistently getting counseling from officers like TCAPS and BJ, always getting the information needed. The biggest way, Miss Addie, you know me, I love this part right here. The biggest way we learn it is if you're not you with you. If you don't understand yourself, you can't understand anybody else in the world. And I mean nobody. If you don't have a clear man in the mirror moment, woman in the mirror, whatever you may be, if you don't have that, you don't have nothing else in the world. You cannot understand anyone if you don't have a love and understanding for yourself. And like your shirt says, we got to spread that bad boy on a consistent basis. Make sense? Is that it, Elizabeth?
I agree. Can I just add, I think it's important to remember when we're talking about communication and trying to figure out the next steps, where do we go from here? How do we bridge these gaps in our community? I think it's so important with our youth to remember how they're getting so much of their information now. I'm a millennial, but I'm an older millennial. So I was born in 1987. I grew up, I mean, Facebook came about when I was going into college. So my entire childhood, there was none of that. So I remember what that was like. My kids now, I mean, my oldest is going to be 8 next month. And their life is like Roblox and tablets and like all kinds of games, Minecraft, things that it's insane. And they get bombarded with all of these messages. And the older ones in high school and middle school, someone had mentioned like 30-second clips of a story. It's not the whole story. It's like a highlight reel that really is misleading, and they run with it. You know what I mean? And so I think when we come together as a community, when we get to know our local officers and they get to know us, and we're meeting in person and we're taking the time to educate, our youth in our community, because that's where they're spending a large majority of the time. That is what helps to debunk a lot of these false messages that are being sent all over the place, because there is nothing, I think even in the home, it's hard to compete with that. It is nonstop all day through so many different platforms. It is insane how often they're seeing these messages, and it's hard to fight that. I think the best way to do that is, again, those interactions between the community.
I agree. Look, we're gonna we almost time. We have done such a wonderful job with all these beautiful people. I want to give everybody like a minute to give a closing remarks of what you have to say and how you feel about it. What I'm hearing from the officers is they need our help to actually do their job to the perfection of what we want to see. But we can't go to them without going to a higher level of them, which is law changing. I've said it for years. The blood that's been shared, the innocent blood that's been shed. You know how you write a book report, right? Back in the day, and the teacher gives you back red, and it's full of red ink. Especially mine was. I don't know about y'all, but mine was full of red ink, right? So she gave it back to me with that. The Constitution of the United States has so much unease, innocent blood on it. That's where we got to go. That's where the community has to start first. That bad boy, we got to get that report back with the innocent blood that's been shed. That's the report we have to get back. That's what's going to help our community. And we keep saying our, it's law enforcement and community. It's ours together. We're patrolling it together. But I'll start with you, Bess, or whoever's got the mic. Yep. Oh, we're going to work it right back down. That's good.
Just as a pastor and community volunteer, I think like in Archer Lodge, once a year we have a New Year's Day breakfast, and we invite local officers to come out to it. Many of them do. I think that's the gap that needs to be bridged. So, churches, us, more that we can do what we need to do within to bridge that gap in our community, provide those opportunities for that to be able to take place, I think will be beneficial. So, and also, just speaking honestly, as a person of faith, the big word that involves all this is sin and brokenness of people. And we're all broken, and we all need Jesus, and we need his forgiveness, in my opinion. I believe that's what the Bible teaches. And so, I'd hope that Christians, one of our, foundational beliefs is that Paul says that we're to strive to live at peace with everyone. Do all that you can to live at peace with everyone. And so, we need to talk about that in our churches. And we have that opportunity to teach parents, teach kids, and to be supportive, to help, again, to reinforce what you all are trying to do. So I appreciate, your time coming out here today.
She goes, my hubby said it all. I just think it's critical that we keep doing more of this stuff, right? Because we learn by hearing the other side, or the perceived other side, right? It helps to then frame or reframe the narrative that we have seen in 30-second clips or the oral history that we've learned over time. Because we can't change the past. So how do we go about having an impact on the future? And so more of this, none of us are trying to defend a position. We're all with one common goal. How do we bring unity? And I agree with Pastor here is, for those of us in the faith community, we know that sin and faith brings inside change, which then permeates outside, right? As opposed to the other way around, outside and inside. And so, it's having our churches saying, we're not going to stand on the sideline either. And so this is a challenge. I'm a black guy that happens to go to a predominantly white church, right? So I know, Dre, so we hired a pastor that has a black name. No, just kidding. But how do we, in the faith community, how do we embrace this to where we're not a part of the problem, but really a part of the solution, understanding that this, from a faith perspective, which is the eyes the church should be looking at it through, is a sin problem. And so let's not alienate, right? That's where we find ourselves, because then everything becomes politicized. The Democrats are the Republicans, and then we get sucked into that vortex, which is unproductive. So how do we as the faith community lead in reconciliation across everything, not just racial, right? But there's so many other places where we've got division. So how do we lead from the faith?
And I think, in meeting Fred and talking through this, and if you're a person of faith, we really believe that, God created us in his image, every single individual. And so as we look at that and we look around, we think, then there's one race. And how did we get here, right? And we realize that the conversations that we need to have and understanding, especially in our community, is extremely important. And so I'm grateful for you, Fred, to be able to bring this. And I think I personally, as a pastor, have been looking for a way forward to have these conversations. And I'm grateful for those of you that are forging pathways forward for these conversations to happen, because they're critical in what she had said, and they're extremely important. So I'm thankful to hopefully continue to be a part of the solution moving forward in our community, especially here in Clayton.
To pretty much just echo what everybody else has been saying, I think the key here is building the relationships. You can teach kids, all these wonderful things about officers, and you can teach them the rules and what you should do, and you can teach officers, you can give them the training, you can tell kids, this is what you're supposed to think, this is what officers are for. But everybody's living life through their own lens of their perspective, of their experiences. And, you've got kids seeing, this is a story they're seeing on the news, or that they're being brought up that this is how I need to fear law enforcement. Regardless, most people of what you try to teach them, they're going to live their life based off of the experiences that they've had. And so I think it's really key for us to give both law enforcement and the people in the community experiences to come together and to see that, I'm seeing on the news that people of color are getting killed left and right. But when I interact with my officer at this school or at this event put on by the church or by Unity of Movement or whatever, the officers that I see in my experience of those officers is they care. They're here. They're showing up. They're here to protect me. They want good for me. I have a good relationship with these officers. And so I can understand beyond what I see on the news. And for officers also to know the people in the community that they're serving, to know, what is it that this, teenager has been through to cause him to respond in the way, not knowing any better, not having the education, not knowing what his home life might be like, not knowing what stresses he may have faced himself at school that day or what he's going through, knowing the people that they're serving, and having a more personal experience of that, and just building those relationships. And I think that's really the true way to bring about the trust. And if we don't have the trust, there's only so much you can teach. If we don't have that trust, if we don't have those interpersonal relationships, we don't have the respect, we don't have the community and the I see you and I want you to understand where I'm coming from. If we don't have that, there's only so much the training and the teaching in school, and there's only so much that's going to do. We really have to focus on getting everybody away from the screen and back together as we're a village. We're, takes a village to raise a child. We need to come back together as a village. We need to start building that foundation. And I think it all has to begin there.
Yeah, I'm just going to say briefly, I really appreciate this and be able to hear just people be honest and talk about tough stuff. And so just having those kind of opportunities are what we need. And so I'm just grateful to see it and think about it as I leave here.
Look, don't y'all get food now. When she get warmed up, trust and believe me, this mic would only be right here. Never move. But, I would like to say, I would like to see more of, this going on, because this actually brings the community together. And yes, we had y'all chairs lined up over there, but I want y'all chairs to go all the way around so we can all, be together, everybody in one setting, and, not make it look like you across the track. You know what I'm saying? So, and with what you were saying, I wish I could get, some literature and stuff like that, like even in our community, we have a lot of kids. So, they need to know that, right now they're outside playing and we having this meeting. To be honest with you, they need to be here. We need to put them with us, bring everybody together. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Well, as I said in the beginning, I always appreciate the opportunity to have these conversations. It creates dialogue. Dialogue leads to understanding. Understanding leads to, a sense of trust and acceptance. And when you start to really dive into it, you find that, wait a minute, there's a lot of the same goals here, and all looking for some similar outcomes. And I think we all want the same things. And if you're familiar with a guy by the name of Robert Peel, Peelian Principles, I'm a big fan of one in particular, and it says that the police are the public and the public are the police. And paraphrasing, there's no difference between the two. We've just simply given the police, the responsibility and the trust, and compensate them to give their full-time attention to the things that we should all care about as a society. And with that in mind, as a person who has been fortunate enough to find themselves in a law enforcement leadership role, that's what spurs me. That's what motivates me. I want to create the kinds of interactions that really bring that Peelian principle out. I am here for you. I am an extension of you. I am not a separate entity that exists in this bubble, and I want you to feel if you can come and you can have that conversation, and I want to seek out the opportunities to have the conversation with you. And you kind of chuckled a few moments ago about not knowing that I was a chief, and that's okay, because at some point in the future, that title will pass away, and it won't be the role that I'm in anymore. And I have forbidden any of my family to put chief on my tombstone. It will be Lawrence. And I think the more that I try to create relationships based on that, the more we all try to create relationships based on that kind of notion, I think we'll develop a level of understanding and trust, and who knows what might come of that. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
I love that, Lawrence. Actually, the way he was talking, it just reminds and makes me feel good, because that's what he's talking. Law enforcement and the community want the same thing. They want a safe community, and it's difficult when people don't trust each other. And we've got to have this conversation. So I appreciate what the chief said about that. We are one, and once we realize that, we work toward the same goal. And you said it, because I always say it. I mean, everybody wants to go home. Popo want to go home. Your kids want to go home. And that's the ultimate goal. Everybody wants to go home, and we need to work toward that, figure out what that looks like for the community. What, how is that? So thank you for the invite, Fred. I really appreciate it.
All right, Liz.
Well, first, can I just say, I hope everyone has contact information that they can share because I love networking and I think this is a great conversation. I hope there's going to be a part two. I just love where this is heading. I mean, where the Racial Equality Coalition is in the process of sitting down and talking with the Clayton Police Department. They've kind of been in a state of unrest, kind of trying to get things situated. But we're hoping to kind of bring them into these conversations too, and to see how we can start growing that relationship with the community. I know there's events and things that they've done in the past, and I know obviously with COVID, a lot of those things had to stop, but I think this is what it's all about. We have to get together. We have to take the time. We have to get to know people on a name-to-name basis. That's how you grow a relationship. That's how someone had said earlier, it's not just a police officer, it's Lawrence, or it's, Josh, or it's whoever it happens to be. That changes the dynamic when you know somebody, when you know their name, when you know a little bit about them. It completely changes how you interact with them. You're usually a little more relaxed, a little more level-headed, and you see them as a human being, which I know the officers were, talking about. So this is great. Thank you.
All right, Eddie.
I would like to reiterate what Elizabeth has shared, but I also want to ask you a question. What is your reality? When you step outside of this room tonight, how are you going to look at people that you do not know? If Lawrence, now that we're on a first name basis, is in a police uniform and you react to him out of a reality that we've been talking about, is that reality? I'm encouraged because what I have experienced is a room of people who want the same thing: love, respect, do no harm to your neighbor. But we get persuaded by social media that you are not the reality. You are the exception. I would like for us to try thinking about when we look at each other, we see a new reality. We see a heading toward kingdom on earth. That we see the possibility of what is real because you have expressed it so eloquently today. We can solve every problem because we love and we desire to see peace and love as the standard, the reality, and we can make it possible. Thank you very much.
We're gonna get a hand clap for you, Miss Addie. We're gonna... Oh, it's been a blessing. I'm a team person. I've been coaching for years, so when I see teamwork, that's my goal. I get fired up. You've never seen me coach, so you would never. This is not my voice when I coach. I promise you that. My sons would tell you straight out, it's a total, their dad is totally different. But this is where I get the kickoff. This is where it's powerful for me. And I appreciate the beauty that you guys have showed up today. Thank you so much for coming through and just making this betterment. You know what I'm saying? We have to show love continuously. This is how we do it. Because everything's based off. The world was built off love, so we got to continue that. That's the only way we can survive. That's the only way we can handle it. And I have to say to my lovelies that's always with me, I appreciate you so much for joining me again. You guys are awesome. We rock it out again. And we're going to plan another one.
Good.
Y'all know how I do. We just keep going. Just keep going. But to say to everyone on social media and everyone, share this and get the message out, and then join us as well. You guys know how I feel about certain things, and there's two things I love to say is your mindset has to be stronger than your feelings. And I say that to officers and community. Your mind has to be stronger than your feelings. And y'all understand that, right? I don't need to break that down, though. That's like coaching me. I'll charge y'all later for that. God bless you. Everyone stay safe. And always please remember, if each individual does the individual job, that is what makes a team. Gotta keep that in your mind. Each individual does the individual job. That's what makes a team. Y'all be blessed, be safe. You know, one blood loves you. We talk to you soon, okay?